Hi, this is Tracy Swedlow, and this is Televisionation. This show is all about connecting the people in the TV industry and educating us all while we're locked away in our homes. And I hope that you've been able to review a bunch of the shows that we've put out recently. I am really thrilled to welcome Matt Fanelli, who's the SVP of Digital Sales and Operations over here from MNI Targeted Media. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today, Tracy. Happy to be here.
I wanted to ask you, by the way, before we go into what your purview is, because how are you doing at home? Are you okay? Or is everything?
We are doing okay.
You know,
my home office is good. My wife and I, we have 4 children. So there's a lot going on in our house. All of the kids are home, just like all of you watching the show today. So it's definitely been interesting. We're fortunate enough where we all have a little bit of quiet space, but the new norm has definitely settled in for sure. My kids range in age from a 19-year-old all the way down to a 1-year-old. So we've got a lot of different age ranges and a lot of different consumption happening in this house.
you could do a little mini focus group or something.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I bet the 19-year-old is really thrilled to be home. You know, okay. So,
or especially since you got to come home from college.
Oh, really? I have various friends like that. Okay,
Yep.
so is that challenging?
Very challenging. I think it was, like most of you are probably experiencing, she got a little taste of freedom, was away for a semester, and now not only did she have to move home when she was going away to college, she is on lockdown. So it's been interesting times for sure.
Interesting. All right, well, let's talk about what your work is over at MNI. So tell me a little bit about your background and what your purview is, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I've actually been in the digital space for a little over 20 years now. I've been with MNI Targeted Media for the past 13. And one of the things that really kind of excites me the most is that nothing is the same each and every day. Everything is different. So if there's one thing that I've learned, the constant in digital media is change. And it really is about the way that consumers want to receive their information, right? I think from my perspective, the days of build it and they will come are long over and gone. People want what they want in the way they want to receive it, when they want to receive it, and how they want to receive it. And the rest of us just need to make sure that we're where the consumers are.
So which products?
In addition to my day job over at MNI. Say that again, Tracy.
I'm saying, which products are you in charge of over there, or that you are watching? I mean, the magazine stuff, or the digital media that supports that, or?
So I'm responsible for everything digital. So that's everything from programmatic to OTT to streaming audio to custom placements to social to search. And really, it's about monitoring the growth and proliferation of all of these things. And, what I was, one of the most interesting things I think is that it's constantly evolving and changing for us as it is really for the world. So all of these different products, what we hear really from everyone that we're working with across the country is how they're looking at instituting all of them as part of their media mix.
Okay, so I know you've got some interesting slides to show us about what you've discovered, some of the research you've been able to pull.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you like to show? Let's see.
Yeah, so I'm going to open these up for us right now. So I think, one of the most interesting things is considering what's going on in the world right now, and really everyone's hesitation about what I should be doing, is I think to a large degree what's currently happened. And I actually just gave a webinar at the end of last week to a little over 300 people, specifically about OTT. And I think one of the biggest misperceptions is in terms of a lot of these new products and really consumption patterns is that this is what people do. They're kind of stuck in what they do. And what I will say is, I think it's about the opportunity to reach consumers as they shift their viewing behaviors. You had kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, Tracy, about kind of a focus group, and me having my own little mini focus group. And, what I will say is when I look at my oldest daughter, the way that she views kind of quote unquote TV is very differently than the way I would view TV, or my mom would view TV, or my wife's 90-year-old grandmother would view TV. And we're really taking a look at that from the perspective of it's really about the device that we're bringing something into versus the device itself. And what I mean by that is, the television industry overall is undergoing a significant disruption. I am meeting people, and sometimes it's not the traditional people or the millennials that you would think, okay, these are the cord cutters or these are the cord neverers. I mean, I'm meeting people as I'm traveling the country, and I'm on the road up until, the pandemic, about 3 days a week, where even people as part of this multi-generational family tree, if you will, because that's the perspective I like to come from, my wife's 90-year-old grandmother is streaming in television content into her TV now, right? So it's this perception that we all have of, oh, it's only the young, cool kids. It's really not. And I think, if anything, this is thrusting society into a direction where my wife's grandma, Dot, who's amazing and she's awesome, just had her 90th birthday in December. She has literally said to us, I can't believe I never watched anything in Hulu before. I can't believe I haven't done this.
Can I interview your mother-in-law?
Yeah. So, it's really interesting. And when we look at just the research in general, from a penetration standpoint, the number of viewing hours, the ad spend, I mean, by the end of this year of 2020, it's estimated that $5 billion is going to be spent on OTT, and digital video itself growing exponentially. I mean, the growth there and the opportunity is amazing. I recently, just earlier today, actually had a call with an agency down in South Florida where they're very automotive focused and their constituents spend a ton of money on television assets. And, they know that they're losing eyeballs, and their question is, how do I pick them up? But how do I prove the efficiency and the efficacy of everything? And, what I will say, Tracy, is there's a trifecta of things that are happening from the consumer mindset standpoint. And the way that I like to talk about that trifecta is really, first is the number of choices that we have as consumers. So whether we're buying a t-shirt or a new car, or we're looking for insurance, etc., we have more choices than we've ever had before. A recent study that I looked at is in the average American supermarket, there are, and actually I'll ask you for a quick guess. Do you know how many choices of cold cereal, just cold cereal, there are in the average American supermarket?
I'm going to say 150.
Very, very good. 156 choices in the average American supermarket.
Showcase? Do I win the big showcase?
You do. You get a gift card. 156 choices of cold cereal. Now you look at the average attention span of adults in the United States. The year 2000, it was estimated that the attention spans of adults was 12 seconds. Fast forward to the end of last year, which is 2019, it's estimated that attention spans were less than 3 seconds. There are a lot of psychologists that are actually looking and disputing that, because it is said that that is less than the attention span of a goldfish. So
I know that in my own life, right? I'm just constantly getting emails for new webinars, free education classes, sports classes, content like from us, Televisionation. I need to watch something on, Netflix, and then I have to watch YouTube for the news. And, it's like, it's overwhelming how many content choices we have. And then we have to navigate all these apps to order groceries. And that's a whole elaborate media experience. I mean, how do we understand brands going forward? How does a company like MNI understand how to put forward your content when you're competing with Hulu and Disney Plus, which are doing so extremely well in this environment, right? I mean, like how do you get your stuff out the door and get some eyeballs?
Right. I think, and to your point on that, the third part of this trifecta is the number of connected devices in the household. Average American household has 13 connected devices. So you've got too many choices, to your point. You've got the lowest attention span, and you have tons of connected devices. From our standpoint at MNI Targeted Media, the way to get the eyeballs, it's not necessarily just about the eyeballs. It's how do I get the right eyeballs for my brand, right? And my business. And that really comes through data and targeting. You know, the days of throw it against a wall and let's hope something sticks is really over. It's a matter of how do we reach the right people at the right point in time, in the right environment, in the right mindset to complete a predetermined desired action. So many brands that we talk to don't really know what success looks like. We always ask the question, what does success look like for you? What is the expectation? Start with that before we figure out what is the media deployment, right? What is the targeting and data? What is success? And a lot of that is going to dictate what's on the actual media program, what the mix looks like up and down the funnel, what type of data, what type of targeting should be applied to this. Because to your point, there's tons of eyeballs, there's tons of competition. From a brand perspective, how do I get the right message out in front of the right people? Well, the reality is we need to start with what is success, and then we need to apply the right level of data and targeting. And the right level of data and targeting is really, really important. I mean, again, I think from the consumer perspective, we want what we want when we want it. When we look at things like Amazon, I mean, the growth and the reason why Amazon is doing so well is because they give us what we want when we feel like it. And when we're too, attention deprived and we're doing 50 different things and multitasking, they're making a recommendation to us and the majority of us actually purchase it.
But to be honest,
when we take a look at,
I would say actually that I don't think these networks are being proactive enough. I would say they occasionally send you emails to say, here's some recommended content based on the last thing you viewed. And it's pretty much a, here's our environment and then come get us when you're ready, which we do. Mm-hmm. But I would say they're not very good at creating community. They're not very great at all at creating interactivity. Amazon offers, the whole store element, but none of them are really good at creating experience, I think. And I'm wondering what brands out there are doing that. I know everyone's collecting data, and I'm curious what your observations are about collecting data, but what are observations about, using data to create a community, because that's what people are looking for right now. They're looking to get together. I mean, I'm creating TV with my relatives like everybody else is. I like relative TV on Sunday afternoon, right? On Zoom or something. Why don't we go to the next slide to look at some of the statistics?
Yeah, hold on. Let me start this again. So
okay. We still have that other slide with all the things you've learned. We did that slide.
Yep, we went through this one. Let me hit next. Okay. We were on this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the conversation where we talked about data and I actually started to talk data and creating experiences, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily in your purview, but I was kind of curious if you did have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay. So I'll just restate the question, which is, I think that a lot of these networks that are doing so well, like Hulu and Disney Plus, Netflix, or other D2C services, not necessarily aggregators, everybody out there could be a lot more proactive about creating experience, because I think most of them expect you to just show up in their network and to give you a good experience. And, there's a little innovation here and there with watch parties, but is there a need for these platforms to create a more proactive way of creating community around their programming? I think there is. What do you think? And how do the brands get involved with that? And then how do you, I'm asking you more as an industry observer, perhaps, rather than what MNI Targeted Media does specifically.
Absolutely, Tracy. And that's a great question. And, I've spoken to a lot of folks about this idea and this concept of the networks creating experiences and really what that means. And what I will tell you is, I think a lot of what is happening specifically in the OTT space and connecting for the networks, a lot of it, believe it or not, from what I'm hearing is it's still a little bit of the Wild West for them, right? And they have a little bit of uncertainty around, how do I harness the power from a brand perspective to sell more targeted advertising to specific brands? And what I will say is, I think the consumer need is, they absolutely need to do a solid job of harnessing this information, collecting the data to build an experience, because the truth is, we have a lot of choices. And what I will tell you is, just in my own household, during this pandemic and in quarantine and being locked down, as I said, I've got 4 kids. We age and range from, my oldest down to a 1-year-old. Trolls for 2 of my kids is a really big deal. Well, Trolls 2 was supposed to release in the movie theater. We started to receive targeted messaging in my household because of the age of my kids for Trolls 2, which we were able to rent for $19.99. Now, the interesting thing in terms of creating that experience is, well, who pays $19.99 nowadays to rent a movie? Nobody does. However, the positioning of it was, this was going to be released in the movie theater. You would have had to bring your kids to the movies. However, because the movie theaters are closed, you can do this in your household because you have a connected device, and it's $19.99 and you get to view it for 48 hours. Well, guess what? They created an experience for my family in the middle of this unprecedented pandemic, where we recreated a movie night in our household for a brand new movie that hasn't really been released until that point in time. So I think the need for collection of data and targeting and that brand experience in the household is really important. And again, I think part of the reason why that's important is, we have too many choices, and the concept of build it and people are just going to come here is somewhat over. So when we look at some of the data, 76% of US households have a connected TV device. The data and the information that I've been looking at really on a daily basis has been constantly changing. Last week, I came across a piece of research that said subscription services, so your Disney Plus, your Hulu, your Netflix, all of it, was up 186% because people are stuck at home. It's like fish in a barrel, right? People that said, you know what, I don't do that, are saying, you know what, I've got some time. Maybe I should try it because everybody else is doing it. 45% of all digital video ad impressions in Q2 of 2019 were connected TV ads. The deployment of the messaging is really coming through the device, which I say, quote unquote, your television is a giant monitor that's hanging on a wall or sitting on a piece of furniture, right? And we're streaming information into it. My oldest child, she wouldn't watch anything on a TV if her life depended on it. She's watching it on her mobile device or her iPad. That's just the way that it is. That daily consumption of streaming content is up 15%. I actually remember, Tracy, when, and again, I always like to take my marketer hat off and, put on my, I'm an average person with a family. What do we do in my household, right? Instead of professing, which a lot of us tend to do because we're on the forefront of this, I look at my kids, I look at my wife, and I say, okay, why do you interact with certain things? Why are you purchasing certain things? Why do certain things interest you? And we moved into our house that we're in now 5 years ago, and I thought I was being a good dad, and I mounted a television on a wall in my daughter's room, and I broke a sweat and had to get a drill, etc. And we got a cable box, and I was paying the rental fee, and we surprised her with it. And this was a pivotal moment for me. She looked at me, Tracy, and said, Dad, thank you so much. I would never turn that thing on. I wouldn't turn it on. She said, I watch stuff on my laptop or I watch it on my iPad. I wouldn't turn that on. And if you're paying for that cable box, you should return it. The reality is, someone a lot wiser than me once said, the days go by slow, but the years go by fast. And when I think about up and down the funnel from a brand perspective, if we continue to do what we do every day, because that's just the way we've always done it, 10 years from now, where individuals like my daughter are going to be at a life stage where potentially they're settling down, maybe having a child, maybe purchasing their first home. If we continue to market the way that we market unequivocally across the board, we are going to miss the boat on these people, right? Because this is a generation that is being thrust and has been into consuming information in a very different way. The joke that I always like to make is I talk to my kids about, and I don't consider myself, I'm in my 40s. I talk about the card catalog and the Dewey Decimal System. They look at me like I have 15 heads. That doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
You're a boomer. You're a boomer. Right?
For my 19-year-old, and I look at my little ones, and which is really important in terms of digital video and really the television industry. When you think about it, you had mentioned your 12-year-old. Well, everyone is homeschooling their kids. They are being forced, right? And I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm just saying it's a fact to consume and learn through a digital screen.
Well, she's consuming through my digital big screen right here.
There you go.
That actually has to change, because she's taking over my workday. Long story. She actually really is interested in a big screen experience right now at 12. I don't know if that's endemic to her age, because every time she gets on here, she wants to enlarge an image. She wants to watch the big screen and, somewhere else. I mean, she has, her computer, but maybe it's just an age thing. So what could brands be doing, or these content services, in your opinion, from all of the things that you're able to see and and all the management of data through your analysis of attribution opportunities like the screen, which is the customer journey? I mean, what are you seeing? What kind of data have you pulled? Have you pulled anything just recently? And what could brands be doing, or content brands be doing better based on what you're seeing?
Yeah, I think to that point, Tracy, just in terms of kind of the data and what I'm seeing, is I really think for brands, right, and this concept of don't just throw something against the wall and hope it sticks, is start basic. Look at your demographics. Are you, targeting, is your business just in certain areas of the country, or are you nationally, right? Like, what are your heavy up markets? Target that way. Look at your demographics. Is it males? Is it females? What's your household income? We live in a world and an environment currently where every single dollar counts, whether you're a top 100 brand marketer all the way down to a local business, right? Every dollar that you're spending, you have to prove the efficiency of that dollar. I would say start with the targeting of geography, the demographic information, and then layer some intender qualities against that, right? So what I mean by that is, if you're an automotive brand, well, you probably want to reach people that are potentially in market to buy a car versus just reaching everyone within a demographic. And I think
in a COVID environment, should they be reaching out? I mean, what's happening? Are people actually looking to buy a car right now? I mean,
I will tell you, that's a great question. I myself actually just purchased a car 2 days ago, and it was one of my best car buying experiences. Another lady that works in the office with me just purchased a car 2 weeks ago, because I think across category, and I'll tell you a little bit about my car purchasing experience, but it's about maintaining your spend and pivoting your messaging, right? What I will say is, I think from a brand perspective, I actually had the time now to sit back and really be a little bit more open to the messaging. And I'm researching and catching up on things that I probably needed to catch up on. What I will tell you is my car buying experience was no contact car buying because of what's going on. The entire deal, the negotiation process, the paperwork was done just like you and I are doing this show here today. Someone came with a mask and rubber gloves and left the keys to the car with a sanitized cover on the steering wheel of the vehicle in my driveway. DocuSign was used to sign all of the paperwork. And what I will tell you is, I actually said to my wife, it was one of the best car buying experiences I've had. I took a virtual tour of the vehicle. It literally, after the research piece was done, I spent maybe 15 minutes on the phone with the salesperson, and they got a sale and sold the car. I also think, there are certain categories, right, that have been impacted pretty significantly, like travel and tourism. And I think the reality is, what I'm seeing there is they're ramping up for when this is over. I think a lot of the reality is, once this is done, and think about it from your own perspective and a lot of folks that I'm talking to, the first thing that my wife and I would love to do is go take a vacation away from our kids as soon as this is over. even if it's for a long weekend. And I think, I say it jokingly, but the reality is a lot of travel and tourism clients know that this is what people are thinking. It's great that we're all home and we're spending time with our families, but the truth is we all need to get back out in the world. And when that changes, travel and tourism is going to be right there, and they're really ramping up. So they have the right messaging in place, kind of that get back message to really drive that home as soon as a lot of this stuff passes. So I think it's interesting. I mean, and I will say again, best car buying experience that I've probably had in 15 years, Tracy.
That's amazing. It sounds to me like they've been preparing for this, or they were able to adapt very, very quickly. Any other brands that you're seeing in your data that are growing or exploring use of digital services? I'm not quite sure what you would specifically be studying.
Yeah, so I will tell you that the two other kind of industries or categories, healthcare and consumer packaged goods. Consumer packaged goods, and we work with a lot of different national and regional CPG brands, everything from, cereal companies to dairy companies. They have significantly taken advantage of OTT executions, right? And the targeting around OTT deployments, because they know streaming services are up, that people are at home. How do they get their message in front of them? Because things like, going to the supermarket and finding, products for your families, in some cases, people are looking at branching out and trying new things. It's a great opportunity to do that. And within healthcare, telemedicine and creative messaging around telemedicine right now is growing exponentially. And again, with my 3.5-year-old, again, focus group of one in my house, we did a telemedicine call with the pediatrician, the most efficient and the best pediatrician visit we've ever had. So I think this concept of transacting and doing business virtually, because data and targeting is being used to target my household, is making the world of difference for brands.
Going back to the brand packaging issue, I know that in my own experience and on other people I've spoken to, we're having to look beyond San Francisco, which is where I'm based, for things that we want to eat, that we want to bring in our home, because there are shortages, right? Or delays from these delivery services, because I'm not able to go out and pick up my own groceries. It's a long story, but so I've found various services around the country that I can go to and order specific things that I want. Right. Yep. And I know that those people are overwhelmed. So I think somebody would be very smart to go build like a channel or something to go bring in a lot of these smaller providers. I know that Goldbelly exists, of course. They've been doing this for a long time, but it'd be a great sort of TV opportunity to pick up all of these small brands that are delivering things all over the country, because they're overwhelmed or they need to reach more customers. It's just they have different experiences depending on what kind of food they are. And then also the telemedicine thing, I think is really great, because in San Francisco, having to park to get to your doctor's office is a nightmare, unless you have a garage there or something. So I'm saying yes, please.
Yes. Yeah, and what I will say is, so for my wife and I, we actually live in Westchester County, New York. So we live 1 mile from the original outbreak that started in New Rochelle. So we've actually been in a containment zone since the beginning of March. So from a delivery service perspective, we are not allowed, because the National Guard is here. So whether it's an Instacart, et cetera, we can't get anything delivered to our homes at this point, because they're concerned about the delivery people if they don't live in this area. I would probably say 1 out of every 4 people where I live has probably been diagnosed with COVID-19 at this point. Fortunately enough, we're all good. We're healthy in my house. But what I would say is, when we venture out, right, and it goes back to this consumer packaged goods discussion, specifically through OTT executions, because things are so limited, right, be it whatever you're used to, whether it's a container of milk that you're used to getting, right? Because we're so limited, we are trying new things, because we're looking for different products in the supermarket. And to be quite honest, I'm glad that we're being targeted appropriately, because we really like some of the new stuff that we've never tried that now we would probably be pretty consistent with.
Well,
So
when you say you're being targeted, are your grocery stores like saying, hey, why don't you try this, this brand of milk? Or, I mean, like, how is that happening?
it's actually the brand. So it's not even the grocery store. They're targeting based off of their distribution model. And they're saying, we're getting messages during, certain types of programming where it's like, listen, you should try this French onion dip. And we're like, we never thought of that, or never knew it existed, as I'm foraging, in the wilderness for supplies with my N95 face mask. My ad recall is there and I wind up picking it up. So that's how they're targeting, right? Because they're utilizing this data and targeting to say, you know what, this is a household, or the CPG brands that are specifically targeting because they know we have kids in the household. Like, we always generally, purchase Stonyfield cheese sticks. For those of you that know what those are, all of a sudden, the Paw Patrol cheese sticks come on, and guess what? Paw Patrol cheese sticks are all the rage in my house right now. Never something I would have purchased if we were not exposed to that messaging. So really, really impactful. And I think it is definitely a moment in time for marketers to harness the power of what is available, for sure.
Anything else that you have learned that you want to go through? I think you had an overall slide, perhaps.
I do. I think that one, can you pull that up at screen share? That one didn't actually load.
Okay, let's find that.
Thank you.
If I can find it. Where did it go? It wasn't this one. It's not this one.
It was the top 10 things.
Yeah. That is very strange. Oh. Don't worry, I can cut this down.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Okay, here it is. You see that?
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
So what I would say, Tracy, to that point is, there's really kind of 10 things that I would categorize as things that we've learned so far. Video consumption, as I said throughout the show today, is really growing day by day. Streaming, CTV, OTT, right, are seeing daily increases. I gave you guys a stat of 186% growth in streaming, right? Live streaming is gaining more popularity. So when you look like in Italy, live streaming on social platforms grew 66% in 1 month's time. It's this concept of people are home. How do I live stream this information? Social media use has skyrocketed. I mean, I'm not sure if you and your family have watched it, but I will tell you, here's where social media and streaming have connected. Tiger King on Netflix. I have not
tired of it.
Every person that I talk to is like, Matt, have you watched Tiger King? It is in every social media platform. Everyone is talking about it. It is all over the place, right? That social media use has really skyrocketed. Digital news is taking over. People are clamoring for information. What's going on in my state? What's happening? We see that. And because of that, the time spent on news sites has grown exponentially. It's up by 46%. People are looking. I mean, even though people are working, and what I will tell you is I think people are busy. We're open for business. Everyone is working. The not having the commute time, right? Free up some time for people. What we are seeing is, and we're hearing this across the board, TV ad placements, the traditional ones are slowing, right? Many brands are pulling their linear ads to avoid associating their messaging with kind of negative news, which is why I think we're seeing the growth in the OTT space. Live events, which I think a lot of us have seen, are going digital. I mean, there are concerts of one, Good Morning America. I mean, those live events, the anchors are doing it from their bedrooms and their living rooms. I think it's awesome. Brands are sharing free content to reach more consumers. I mean, a lot of brands that have content and are content generators, even some publishers are saying, we had stuff that was behind a paywall. We are opening it up. We are open for business. Let folks come in. media is pushing to drive sales, to showcase kind of the idea and the concept that you can do online shopping. I mean, there's a lot of online sales. I mean, to your point, depending on where you are in the country, you guys have figured out, and that's actually a great business opportunity, how to bring everything into your house. So many people are doing that. I think, one of the stats that I read is e-commerce, since it started, is actually up over 55%. And believe it or not, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency seems to be on the rise.
Yeah, I saw that at the bottom there. That is so weird.
Which is really interesting. I mean, people are looking at the fluctuation.
We're talking about a united digital currency or something, right? That's been floating.
That's exactly right. I mean, people are looking at, kind of the stock market, up, down, what's going on. The cryptocurrency has kind of doubled since early March. So these are the 10 things, if we put them in kind of 10 buckets that we've kind of seen and experienced so far. But I will tell you, I think, out of everything bad, there's something hopefully that's good, right? And I think one, from a social aspect, bringing families and people closer together, I think that's a good thing. I think putting life in perspective is a good thing, and understanding what's really important. And from a brand perspective, changing the buying experience to accommodate the consumer is really important. And from the brand perspective, leveraging data and targeting to be able to make sure you're getting the right message in front of the right people at the right time and the right mindset is so desirable and important.
It could be a miracle, but this could force the T-commerce industry, which is still nascent and has been nascent for over a decade or longer, to actually gain some traction. Maybe, the networks will launch something.
That's
I don't know. Right. We'll see. What'd you say?
I said that's exactly right. I think, great things come out of necessity and need. And if this has proven anything, is that there is a necessity, right? And there is a need for us to rethink the way that we do everything, how we live our lives as consumers, how networks go to market, how brands need to target their best consumers.
Well, it's an interesting time to look at digital marketing, brands, data, attribution. This is a very, very popular topic right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens when we all get back out into the real world. But I don't think any of this research and work that we're doing to understand all this is going to go to naught. Because I still think the e-commerce world, the online digital world is going to even get stronger as we go forward. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. We'll see.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
I once told an old editor of mine when I worked at a magazine in the 90s, because they put me on the e-commerce beat briefly when it was first starting. And I said, okay, great. I think that's really going to be powerful. And then within, a couple of weeks, they decided to blow it off and to just focus on printers. I said, that's not a good idea. Okay, anyway, that's why I left that publication. All right, well, thank you so much, Matt. This has been a really great sort of far-ranging conversation about generations. Thank you. Data, observations about brands and content and everything. Thank you so much for providing your expertise and insight and experience. And good luck to you and your family.
Thanks. Same to you. I really enjoyed my time today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. This is Tracy Swedlow, host of Televisionation, and of course, this is Matt Fanelli, SVP of Digital Sales and Marketing. I don't have my screen up. Operations. All right, thank you so much. We will be putting this out very soon, and that's it. Take care.
Thank you.